Hello there and welcome back to the third in the series of the Road to Recovery for the Global DIY Network webinars. My name is Ken Hughes. I'm a consumer and shopper behaviorist and I will take any excuse to wear my Christmas suit. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Welcome back to you all, whether you're watching live today or whether you're watching on demand. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. We've had a great series of this webinar so far. In October, we had a look at the captive economy. Last month, we had a look with Rick Vera at innovation and creativity. And this month, we are going to look at the data. We're going to look at what's happening in the DIY industry internationally, all over the world, in terms of trends and try and predict the future. Always a difficult thing to do. So thank you once again for joining us. It's always a pleasure. You know, this is it's an interesting title of this network, the Road to Recovery, these webinars. I was at a DIY store last week myself, and it took me about 30 minutes in the queue to get in. You know, it's a vibrant retail. Depending on where you are in the world, obviously, we're at different stages in the recovery. As we speak right now, people are being vaccinated for the virus in the UK. So, you know, we do see green shoots. There's an element of excitement in any area of retail at the moment in terms of what 2021 may look like. But there's still questions to be answered, and we don't really know how fast we're going to come out of this, how big the global recession could be. And so these are questions that we need help with. Thus, that brings me to our guest today. Stefano Bonner is going to join us, from Euromonitor International. Now, the great thing about having Stefano with us today is he's dedicated his last 3 years of his career as a project manager in Euromonitor International with his area of expertise is home and technology. So he's going to bring us through the last 3 years of gathering data and analyzing all that data with a view, obviously, trying to predict the future of what 2021 may look like, where we are in terms of e-commerce, where the industry is. And the great thing about Stefano is he can do that internationally. He can look at us at the trends across the whole globe. So if you're tuning in today, as I say, whether live or on demand, you're going to get a really good indication of where we are and where the future may lead us to. So Stefano, join us on screen here and meet the crew. It's a pleasure to have you with us, and I know the amount of work that's gone into the presentation today is huge, and so it's great to be able to say hi to you today. So how are you today?
Hi Ken, very good. You?
I'm very good. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in Shrewsbury at the moment.
Shrewsbury in London. Excellent.
Yeah,
good.
I had to move from London.
How has lockdown been for you?
I had to move in with my girlfriend. So yeah, I was initially in London.
Stop. I like the way you say I had to move in. I just pray to God that she isn't watching this on demand or live.
Yeah, so I was in London and then I had to move to my girlfriend's place. And yeah, it's been really good today. Working from home, obviously.
Of course. Any little DIY projects that you've done together in the last few months?
Yeah, quite a lot actually. We worked on the kitchen and living room, and we did also a lot of gardening during the summer. We also had a few tradesmen to help us, to be fair, but we did a lot.
Do all yourself. It's the DIY, the why that's important. Okay, so you've had a first-hand experience of the lockdown DIY craze that everyone's at. Brilliant. Listen, I'm really looking forward. I've seen some of your slides. I'm really looking forward to this today. So I'm going to hand it over to you. You can take it from here, and we'll come back to questions. So anyone watching live, please keep the questions. You can see on the panel there to the right-hand side of the feed. If you're watching on the portal, put your questions in there, and we'll pick them up and we'll use them afterwards for Q&A for Stefano. So Stefano, share your screen and over to you, pal.
Thank you very much, Ken. Sharing the screen now. Here it is. Okay, good morning, everyone. So yeah, this is Stefano from Euromonitor International. I'm the project manager in the home and technology vertical. And today I'd like to discuss with you the home improvement industry in 2020 and beyond. And I will show you some data and some of the trends that we've seen during this year. Before I start, just a quick introduction about Euromonitor International. Euromonitor International is a business intelligence source. We do strategic and tactical market research, and our methodology is to collect information from different sources, primary sources, secondary sources. We leverage also from our internal tools, such as surveys. I will show you some surveys today during the presentation. And we produce data and insights, we validate those, and then we publish everything on our platform, which is called Passport. We do research for many industries, many consumer products, and we have a global coverage. Today, I will focus on one in particular, which is home and garden. Within home and garden, we track 4 industries. So we have home furnishings, homewares, gardening, and home improvement. Within home improvement, we cover 10 product categories, and I go through them. So I think that's very important to make sure that you know what we mean when we talk about home improvement. So we track bathroom and sanitary ware, decorating sundries, floor covering, hand tools, hardware, power tools, kitchen sinks, home paint, wall covering, and then other home improvement. So in other home improvement, we include all the items that could not get categorized in any of the other product categories. An example is tool belts or workbenches, etc. The presentation is structured in 4 parts. The first one is COVID-19 impact on home improvement. So I will show you some numbers and some of the trends that we have seen this year. And then part 2 and part 3 will be focused mainly on the distribution channels and in particular on the e-commerce. In part 2, I will show you some of the examples of some surveys and some examples of what's happening in the industry in terms of e-commerce. And on part 3, I will show you a model that we developed during 2020 about in particular the e-commerce channel. And then on the last part, I will explore a few challenges and opportunities that there will be, according to us, for home improvement in the next few years. Right, let's kick off. So if I have to summarize the trends, what we've seen in the home industry in 2020, that can be summarized in 2 main trends, 2 main topics. One is the home, and the second one is the digital channel. So due to the lockdown, due to the limitation on out of home activities, people started spending more time at home. And that's why I decided to call this trend Home as a Hub, because now we do at home pretty much everything. So we work, we study, we cook, and we do shopping as well. So this links to the other second trend, which is the digital channel indeed. The home is the place where people want to feel safe, they want to feel better. This was already there before COVID, but clearly COVID has accelerated this feeling. So people spending more time at home, so they want to improve the place where they are. And so we saw an increase of DIY activities, renovation projects. This is interesting because before COVID at Euromonitor, we were investigating on a different trend, which was actually do it for me. So we were seeing the rise of do it for me in the home improvement and more in general the home and garden industry. And COVID has changed this completely. So now it brought back the DIY approach. And then the second trend is the digital channel. So for the same reasons, the only way for consumers to interact with the external world was via the digital channel. So we saw a boost in the e-commerce area, and the rise of new consumers. What do I mean by that? So consumers that they used to go in store to research products and to buy products, now they are sort of pushed, they are forced to explore the home improvement industry online. So people that they were not used to do that, now they do it. New platforms, so retailers, industry players are investing on new digital platforms, because now it's key to be there online to sell the products. And the same applies for new categories. So if before COVID, it was more like an option to sell your products online, it wasn't as essential. Now it is key to be there. And so we are seeing that lots of new products are now available online. So as I mentioned before, I will focus a bit more on the digital channel in the second part of the presentation. Now I'd like to I would like to show you some numbers about the home improvement industry, something that we have seen during the year. So this is an overview for the home improvement industry. so including the categories I've mentioned before, world level, so a global perspective in value terms. So we expect for the end of the year, in particular, 3 categories to benefit, which are hand tools, power tools, and hardware, which is not surprising considering the rise of DIY activities that we saw. In terms of regional overview, we have a bit more of a mixed picture. So we expect the end of the year to have a positive home improvement to grow, so to be in positive territory in Europe, Australasia, and North America, while we expect Asia Pacific, Latin America, and Middle East and Africa to be still in negative territory. To summarize what happened, so we had obviously a very harsh beginning of 2020, and then we had a strong rebound with people discovering a DIY, improving their home, etc. This rebound has been at a different pace in different regions, and that's why we have this overall mixed picture. Let's take a look at this in a bit more detail. So I decided to show some market spotlights for each region. So for example, in Australia, we expect a strong growth at the end of the year, around 8% within home improvement, with the best performers being home paint, hardware, and hand tools. As you can see, a very strong growth, very close to 10% for these categories. Taking a look at Western Europe, Netherlands, for example, again, a good growth around 4% in value terms. All the numbers are in US dollars, forgot to mention. Best performance being wall covering, home paint, and floor covering. As you can see, there are some differences between the countries in terms of best performance. So the trends within each country tend to be slightly different, favoring benefiting different categories. South Korea, around 2% growth. I mentioned before that Asia Pacific, we expect, I mean, the rebound wasn't as quick, as strong as in other regions, but there are some exceptions. So South Korea is one of those exceptions. Best performance being kitchen sinks, power tools with drills outperforming the category, and wall covering. Again, if you take a look at the growth of these product categories is quite higher than the 2% overall that we expect for the country. And that's because within each country, some categories perform well and others perform less well. An example, carpets, it's something that we include in home improvement, but carpets perform pretty bad everywhere. And then an example from North America. So we expect growth for the US, with the best performers being hand tools, hardware, and power tools again. But as mentioned previously, the picture is mixed. So while we have countries that perform really well, so they managed to rebound strongly, in many other geographies that didn't happen. So we've seen a rebound, but not strong enough. So in this case, I decided to show some examples of countries where we expect the home improvement to still be negative at the end of 2020. So we have India, South Korea, and Brazil. So I decided to show an example for each region, so Latin America, Asia Pacific, and Africa. So if we take a look at the global picture, US dollars constant value terms, we expect that overall there will be a slowdown of the industry at a global level. But we have seen, if we take a look at bigger picture, so in the next few years, what we have seen is that the rebound, the recovery of the industry after a very harsh beginning of the year started already in 2020, and the rebound started again in 2020 and will continue over 2021, where we will see a real global rebound. So we expect a growth of 6% in value in 2021, and then a growth to remain over the next few years. In value terms, we expect a CAGR of 3.5%. So there will be a slowdown, but the boost given to home improvement and DIY activities due to the fact that we are spending more time at home will continue to stay. Okay, so let me jump now on the second trend that I mentioned at the beginning, which is the digital channel. Before I start, I would like to do a quick note about to make a quick note about the e-commerce channel before the pandemic hit, before COVID-19. So here I've decided to show a few two charts which show the numbers before 2020. And as you can see, what can be said about this is that for home improvement and home and garden, the e-commerce channel was a bit behind compared to other industries outside the home and garden. There was growth, the channel was growing, but the growth was kind of steady. The reason was that the in-store experience was the key one. So consumers they preferred to go in-store to look for products, to try products, and to get the expertise they needed in-store from the staff. So the e-commerce channel, the digital channel, was a bit seen like a good option, something additional, but not something essential. COVID is changing this approach completely, And here I decided to show some surveys that we conducted during 2020, which kind of show the type of change that is happening in terms of distribution channel within the home improvement and home and garden industry. So on the left-hand side, you can see a chart that shows where people do the research to look for homeware and home improvement products. As you can see, the in-person at the store was still the major one, but not too distant. We have online on computer, online on phone, which proves that the e-commerce, the digital channel, has benefit during 2020. More consumers try to look for products on that channel. And on the right hand side, we have a chart that shows the preferred online shopping experiences. So we can see that the first one is free shipping, then free return to store by email, and so on. But I decided, as you can see, I decided to highlight one in particular, which is the ability to try products virtually, which is what it is called the try before you buy. Again, from our research, the home and garden and home improvement industry was a bit behind to tackle this trend, the try before you buy. This is also given by the type of product, so it's not that easy to target this part of the shopping experience. But this is definitely an opportunity that we need to tackle, and something is happening in there. So I decided to show a couple of examples. The augmented reality is definitely a great tool to do this. One example, the one I'm showing here, is from Home Depot. So they invested in augmented reality for their mobile web and app. So basically you can see products in your home, so you can try and see them before you can buy them. But another thing that they did was to develop within the mobile app search image function. So you take a picture of a product, and then they would tell you if the product is available in store and which aisle, and so on and so forth. And there's also voice search function. So this is a great way to engage with customers. What is interesting here is that this augmented reality tool was not developed recently. It was something that was already there before COVID. And it's obvious, it goes with it, that this gave a great position to the retailer to absorb the new demand that happened during 2020 for the digital channel. And something is happening also now that industry players are realizing how this could be a good tool. So an example is Lowe's. They launched in June 2020 an augmented video chat, which is a way to put in touch professionals with households. And this can be done without entering their home. This is very important, because what we have seen now is that there is a rise in demand for home improvement and DIY, but that demand is at home. So it is important for retailers and industry players to engage remotely with the consumers. This also explains why Kingfisher recently, again in November in 2020, so very recently, decided to buy NeedHelp. So NeedHelp was a tool that would allow skilled experts and tradespeople to connect with households that were in need of some help. So what happened is that due to 2020, more people did the DIY, so they have more questions, they need more help. So this platform was great to help these customers. And this goes to the direction towards the direction that I mentioned before. So the fact that retailers and industry players are now investing in engaging remotely with consumers, and this can be done also in this kind of unique service orientated customer service. Now, I've just shown two surveys in the few slides before, which were tackling the pre-purchase phase. Now, these two charts are more about, these two surveys are more about the purchase phase. So on the right-hand side, we can see homewares and home improvement online purchases by country, if the purchases have been done by phone or by a computer. As you can see, overall, they are even, but there are some countries where the purchase of homewares and home improvement products by phone, so mobile, are already higher than the computer. I see India, South Korea, Indonesia, but also, if you can see at the bottom, US and Japan. So clearly the mobile is something that needs to be targeted. The other survey is about the demographic segmentation of customers buying home improvement and homewares products. As you can see, the dark blue is buy in person at the store and light blue is buy online on the phone. And what we can see from this is that millennials and Generation Z, so more younger generation, tend to buy online on phone more than the older generations. So this is something, again, that needs to be tackled, and this is happening. So an interesting move is being done by Wix recently. So they started to engage with this new younger audience via new platforms. So they launched a campaign called My Wix My Way on TikTok, which is also quite relatively young social media. And the idea is they basically show some tasks, some challenges that need to be done in terms of home improvement, and they they push people to do the same and then to post it on the TikTok platform. This is a great way to engage with the new audience, of course, but also to give home improvement a new image, which is younger, which is fresher, which is more modern. And this is an example for Wix, but something is happening in the industry. So another example is Toolstation, that recently has appointed a customer engagement agency, because with the rise in DIY that they experience, they are now trying to work on their data and CRM strategy. So the COVID is kind of giving an opportunity to retailers and players to explore more the digital world. And then the last part of this section in terms of surveys is about the last mile, so the delivery features. Before mentioning that, just if you look at the chart at the survey, on the right hand side at the bottom, you see that again is Generation Z and millennials tend to prefer to buy mobile even when they are in store. So this kind of confirm what we've seen in the previous survey. But then if you look at the chart on the left hand side, this is about the preferred delivery features over 2020. Again, we have free delivery at the top, but what's the point about this is that the delivery, so the last mile, of the purchase phase within home improvement and home and garden is extremely important. So retailers, they need to be able to provide all the types of delivery possible. So here I've mentioned some: buy online, ship to store; buy online, deliver from store; buy online, pick up in store; buy online, return to store, and so on. And retailers are also expanding this bit. So one good example that again happened as a response to COVID-19 is something that was introduced by Bunnings in Australia, which is called Drive and Collect. So customers buy products online, and then they can go to the store. They go to a designated area in the store, they leave the car there, they open the boot, and then a member of the staff would come and would put the products that have been purchased online in the car, and then the customer can leave. And this is a great way to push convenience further. And then what we are seeing in terms of delivery is that the trend that of retailers getting closer to customers that was already happening has been accelerated by COVID. So this is again another recent example. So Leroy Merlin opened recently in Brazil, in the south area of Sao Paulo, a format which is smaller than the traditional one, but the idea is to get closer to customers. So customers now are reluctant to leave their homes, so it is key to bring the store and the products close to them. This is obviously in an approach which is going towards the omni-channel. So as a summary for this part, we have seen digital channel is becoming key as essential. E-commerce is booming, and what retailers and industry players are doing, or they should be doing, is to invest in the digital channel in order to improve their omni-channel approach, which is now not an option, is not something additional, this is something essential. But another interesting thing is that this investment in digital channel is key because there is now more competition within the industry. Before COVID hit in 2020, we were investigating, Euromonitor, the rise of pure play internet players within the home improvement and the home and garden industry. It goes with it that these pure play internet players were in the best position in 2020 to absorb the new demand, the new digital demand for home improvement products. And clearly now they are stronger than before. And so competition is harsher nowadays, and being strong in the digital channel and the e-commerce sphere is essential. Now, continuing on exploring the e-commerce part for the home and garden and home improvement industry, I would like to mention a model that we developed during 2020, which we call the e-commerce readiness model. So the idea was to explore leveraging from socioeconomic variables and leveraging from our data points to explore the unmet potential of e-commerce in specific categories and specific countries. Why is that? Because the push that the 2020 has given to e-commerce, we believe the boost is going to be permanent. So physiologically, there will be a slowdown because the 2020 has been so high, so big in terms of sales, online sales, but the boost will continue. So we explored this unmet potential in several industries, and one of those is home and garden. So I would like to show you the results here. So we tracked countries based on percentage share of e-commerce, but also on value, so actual, so in monetary value. In this case, we have US dollars. As you can see from the charts, China, according to the model, is the country with the highest potential, both in a percentage share and in actuals. The reason is that what we have in terms of e-commerce penetration, well, it is quite low, but China has a good system to absorb way more demand than the one that they had in 2019. So we believe that China is the best country in terms of potential for absorbing the permanent e-commerce demand after the pandemic. And interestingly, the highest potential we see for China is specifically for home improvement. So this is extremely relevant for this presentation. If you take a look at the chart of e-commerce potential based on value, after China we have the US, and again the categories with the greatest potential to expand the e-commerce are in gardening and again home improvement. So US as the e-commerce structure put in place by retailers is quite strong, and with the rise in demand for internet retailing, the US is placed well to absorb the demand. Then if we go back to the chart at the top in terms of percentage share, we see that the second one after China is Australia. So I just decided to show a market spotlight. So this is the way we worked with the model for each country. So I decided to show the example of Australia. Again, you can see that the highest potential, the greatest e-commerce potential in Australia is with indoor furniture, but then the second best is home improvement. And then all the others, so home textiles, gardening, outdoor living. So where we saw in Australia is that there's been in the last few years a lot of investments from retailers in the digital channel, in the e-commerce structure. So we believe that Australia has the good market economic condition to absorb the e-commerce demand in the post-pandemic phase. Right, so the last part of the presentation is exploring some challenges and opportunities in the next few years based on what we mentioned during the presentation. So the first challenge that we see is with the global economy. So I've decided to title this slide with quoting the World Bank. So we are experiencing a very strong recession. So this has an impact, it will have an impact on factors such as unemployment, disposable income, and this can lead to definitely a slowdown in the housing markets and potentially also the delay of a big renovation project. So on the right hand side, you can see our forecast in terms of real GDP, global real GDP, for the next few years. And as you can see, the dark blue line is our baseline. So we expect a rebound in terms of real GDP in 2021. But when we do our forecast, we always explore also more pessimistic scenarios based on the economic recovery, based on potential new waves of COVID crisis. So we expect a third bubble. What if we have a fourth and a fifth one, and so on? So depending on different variables, we produce also more pessimistic scenarios. And here, if you take a look at the dotted line, I've decided to show you the most pessimistic scenario that we have. And as you can see, there is potentially the real rebound will happen in 2022. If that happens, it goes with it that the slowdown in housing market, the disposable income decreasing, might have a negative impact on the home improvement industry in the next few years. At the same time, though, these partly can be an opportunity. So what we have seen, if you take a look at the chart on the left-hand side, this is the middle-class households in emerging and developing countries, and this is the forecast. based on the impact of COVID in 2020, and I'm showing also the more pessimistic scenarios. As you can see, the middle class households in emerging economies is going to be hit. The growth of the middle class is going to be hit. So this can be an issue. So one opportunity for industry players within home improvement is to we have to consider lower and mid-price segments. Providing good quality products with an affordable price can be an opportunity given the economic condition that we are going to face in the next few years. And something is moving towards this direction. So one practical example has been done by Nippon Paints in Indonesia. So they launched in 2018 an home paint technology called Silver Iron, which was antibacterial, but that was only for the premium segment. So it was, let's say, quite expensive. But then in April 2020, they decided to launch this technology for the mid segment, and this was intended specifically to make sure that that was available to more people, so to sustain sales, but also because that technology had antibacterial products, so they wanted more people to use this kind of paint in order to fight potential COVID situations. So there is a trend between consumers towards cleanliness, health and wellness, and so on. So this opportunity is already being targeted during this year, and we think this could be a good one to explore. And the other one is in terms of product innovation. So due to COVID, consumer preferences, consumer behavior, consumer priorities have changed. And we expect these changes to remain. They will not disappear all of a sudden in 2021. So it is key for home improvement players to try to tackle these new preferences, these new behaviors, and adjust the products towards these new preferences. And again, this is something that is already happening. I've put here another example from the home paint category. So Nippon Paint and PPG launched in 2020 antibacterial paints which aim to kill viruses and bacteria on walls. And this in order to target, as I mentioned in the previous slide, there is a sort of mega trend between consumers towards health and wellness, cleanliness. So the attention towards clean products and anything that can fight bacteria, viruses is welcomed by consumers. And this move from Nippon Paint and PPG clearly aims to target this new trend. That's it from my side. Thanks, everyone. Happy to answer questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Stefano. Kill your screen share there and we'll take it back on screen. There you are. Thank you. That was amazing. I have a whole load of questions. I'm going to go through my questions first before I throw it out to the floor, because we have a few questions in actually from various sources. Okay, first thing, interestingly, I'm interested on your take on culture, because you're talking about you know, all those different countries. I'm fascinated by the idea that that some countries the rebound is markedly different. So getting onto that first, culturally, why do you think, having looked at all the data, that countries like you mentioned, India, South Africa, are so far behind on the rebound? Getting onto that data, what do you reckon is going on there? Why?
Yeah, so what we have seen is, well, there are different things going on. The first one that we need to mention is definitely the beginning of 2020. So the beginning of 2020, Q1 and partly Q2 has been harsh everywhere, and it's been also harsher for different countries, different regions. What has to be considered is that in many countries, home improvement and home and garden store, they were considered essential, so they could stay open. But what happened in reality is that they closed down anyway, because for two reasons mainly. One, they had to comply with safety measures and they were not ready for that at the beginning. And the second reason is that people were not leaving their homes. They were advised to stay at home. So there were no people going into stores. So they had to close down. Then after that phase, which has been, again, harsh in some countries, a bit harsher in others, consumers started spending more time at home and realizing that we could do this renovation, do some DIY, etc. And we have seen a rebound. The rebound is being different depending on the country and depending on the region. One factor that has been very important and that links to what we have seen, what I've mentioned during the presentation, is the e-commerce. So the e-commerce channel, where the e-commerce channel was well structured and developed, then retailers have been able to absorb the demand, strong demand rising for DIY, and so sales could go back to rebound. They were able to absorb all the new demand.
So you think that some of the countries that are struggling a little bit don't have as good e-commerce structures in place, and therefore they haven't been able to mop up that extra sales when people weren't coming to store?
That has been definitely an issue, and I can say that we've seen a rebound pretty much everywhere, but the speed and the pace of that is key, because you have to recover from a Q1 which was really harsh everywhere. So to go back to positive territory at the end of the calendar year, you need a very strong growth in all the other quarters. Another thing that it's important to mention that we noticed is the type of DIY. So there is a difference between small DIY work and major renovation projects. So while we have seen major renovation, so the monetary value of those products is different. So if you buy a kitchen sink or home paint, that's different. Yeah. So we've seen a lot. We have seen also some major renovation work, but you have to consider that it's been, according to us, mainly small DIY, because there is a lot of uncertainty for the economic reason. In some region, again, don't forget that we expect North America, Europe to go positive territory. So if I have to summarize, we have seen in developed economies a strong rebound, and in most of the cases we have home improvement being positive in 2020. Yeah. Emerging economy, again, I'm generalizing, but emerging economies struggled a bit more, so the recovery has been not as fast, and so we expect more to catch up during 2021.
Okay, there's a question here in from Thierry Coman, asks, in which regard do you have more details on how COVID has had an impact on the shift from do-it-yourself to do-it-for-me? Yeah, interesting. So in terms of that shift you talked about, the do-it-yourself to do-it-for-me, the impact, do you have any more details on the impact COVID had on that? I mean, I know you mentioned that obviously tradesmen couldn't come in, but where are we going with that over the next year, do you think?
Yeah, so we expect DIY to stay for some time. What we were seeing before COVID is that do it for me was pretty much people were keen to pay other people to do the job for them and to have them in their house. We think that this is going to slow down. One reason is the economic reason. So disposable income we expect to be lower. So people are less keen to pay other people, and if they can save some money and do the job themselves, they will go for it. Plus, there is this thing about mixing in the home. I guess even if it's possible, people will be reluctant to do that. So we expect DIY to come back. I mean, it's already come back, but to stay in the next few years. Do it for me will not disappear, but it won't be the main trend.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to call, because I was on another interview last week and they were talking about in the financial sector, we were talking about the amount of consumer savings that people have right now. We've never had more in the developed economies. There are billions of dollars all over the world sitting in bank accounts that haven't been used this year for vacation and that's why that home improvement spend that people would often maybe borrow for, or for the big projects, is actually there. So the question into 2021, you have to balance the global recession coming our way and the uncertainty that consumers will have about that, and they'll hold their money, versus how long can you hold money for? So if you've already held it for 2020, will you continue to hold it for 2021, or will you start to spend a little bit of it? So yeah, it's really uncertain. Okay, good answer. Another question here. Rainer Strand asks, US home improvement industry will grow by 1% in 2020. Why is this a positive example for the rebound in your point of view, whereas growth rates in the US used to be higher in the past? So they have this idea that 1% is, we'll finish 2020 on 1%, and that's a good rebound. His question is, well, how are you saying it's a good rebound compared to the better growth rates that we've had in the past?
Well, I said a good rebound in perspective, considering what we saw at the beginning of 2020. So I would expect, I mean, if you compare home improvement with other industries, even if we saw a negative performance globally, I mean, it did quite okay compared to other industries. So the fact that it's in positive territory, I think, is already a very good result, considering the situation in Q1 and Q2, depending then on the country.
Yeah.
So
You're
US
right.
has
If you look at
experienced quite, yeah.
You give out some figures there. You said Australia 8%, Netherlands 4%, South Korea 2%, US 1%. As someone outside of the industry, I'm looking at that thinking, well, that's really low. Considering, you hear, particularly on the CEO interviews with John Herbert, meeting the CEOs of various, they have some of them have had their best year ever. Obviously, it depends on the mix of business, home improvement to homeware, and all this other stuff going on in some of the stores. But yeah, you kind of, on one hand, you don't get this because the DIY industry is one of the winners in a way out of the pandemic. But of course, if you think about 5, 6, 8 weeks of trading missing from an average year, that's 20% of your time missing.
Yeah.
When it came in that early spring into summer frame, which is really important for garden, really important for so much stuff, you can't just take trading time out and expect there to be no effect, I guess.
Another thing to consider is that is in terms of definition. So, for example, gardening for us, we saw a strong growth in 2020 globally, pretty much everywhere. But gardening is excluded from the numbers I show because home improvement was just those categories.
That's a good point. I mean, if you take Declan Ronayne, the CEO of Woody's, an Irish retailer, was with us last week with John Herbert, and they've had a great year. But of course, he will be talking for his entire business, and his entire business will be across building supplies, home improvement, but also garden, homeware, and all those bits together, I guess, give a really strong thing. But just for the home improvement piece,
exactly.
Yeah, a little bit different. Okay, well, that makes sense. The e-commerce part, you made a point about before the pandemic that the industry wasn't really at the races in terms of e-commerce. Any idea from your own point of view analysis? Obviously, you're analyzing across the whole world. Why was the DIY industry behind the curve on e-commerce before it's even started?
Yeah, so there was actually like a trend that we were investigating even before COVID. In a nutshell, the in-store channel was the main one. What we were seeing is that consumers wanted to go in-store to look for products, to try products, to see products, and to get expertise. So the human touch in the home improvement industry was very strong. And that's why there was a growth. Again, pure play internet players within the home improvement, they were rising before COVID. So there was some movement there, but we were not seeing such a strong growth like in other industries outside the home and garden. So it's purely for this. But what COVID is bringing is a great opportunity. So it's pushing the industry to go into the digital channel, and I think this is beneficial for the omni-channel approach, but also to have my view is more young and modern image. So for example, I loved what Wix is doing on TikTok, and it's not something that is very common for the home improvement industry to be in such a platform. So in the long term, we expect the e-commerce now, thanks to COVID, there's the opportunity to become a more relevant channel for the home improvement industry. But we still think that in-store anyway will continue to be the key one, because the expertise, the human part remains very important for this industry. But it will help the industry to leverage from e-commerce numbers that were really low in percentage of the total market to be more relevant.
Yeah, I think you listen to the millennial Gen Z. If you add up millennials and Gen Z in terms of consumer power, globally, this would obviously be in developed markets, they account for the biggest consumer group. You know, they're now bigger than Gen X and Boomers together. And I think the industries that see digital as just kind of a channel as opposed to a way of life do make a huge mistake. And I think your points about augmented reality and about what they expect us from a digital business, I mean, we've seen that change all over the world. What's really interesting, and it was a point that was made last week by Declan Renane on that interview. So you mentioned click and collect during your presentation,
Yep.
and he did the same in a negative way. So this is where cultural differences are really interesting in e-commerce. So he correctly, the moment the pandemic hit, contacted all the landlords for all the stores, made them all, put 3 or 4 car bays in front of the store for click and collect, launched their e-commerce angle on that, their phone number you called when you parked. As you said in the other example, I can't remember who it was, they delivered the car, and it was a complete failure. Complete failure. The technology was perfect, but the consumers themselves still wanted to go into the store to pick the product up. So this would be a very Irish thing. It would be a very Irish thing to want that human contact, want a bit of a stretch of the legs, want to touch and feel. And so it's really interesting, whereas sometimes in Australia or America, where something in e-commerce will work, it won't work elsewhere, just culturally. And that's really interesting.
Yeah. That goes back with the fact that, as I mentioned, we have a mixed picture globally. So we have different trends, different things, different categories benefiting in different countries and different regions. But yeah, what
have you any idea why so many people in South Korea are buying kitchen sinks?
No, I should get in touch with the analyst and get the.
When you say kitchen sinks, do you mean bathroom, or is that just kitchen sinks? Is it just kitchen plumbing?
Yeah, it's the kitchen sink. We have the other category is bathroom and sanitary ware, so we include a bathroom there. So it's just actually the kitchen sink. Yeah.
Okay, man. One of my last questions, you mentioned, I just want to clarify because I'm curious myself. You had a 6% value prediction for 2021. 6% increase on 2021. Is that an increase on 2019 where we were, or an increase on the year we've just had?
No, it would be 21 on 20.
Okay, 21 on 20. So an increase of 6% on where we were, which we're saying was kind of probably a year that's down, actually.
I think it is in the slide. In 2021, we will recover more than 2020. So we will offset all the losses that we had in 2020. And so we will be in a better position. Yeah.
Yeah, well, who knows the answer to that one?
Yeah,
it's a bit of a crystal ball game, that one, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, listen, it's fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for joining us today. I've got a lot out of that. I still don't have the answer to the kitchen sinks in South Korea. I want the answer. But yeah, I mean, the scale of what's really interesting is that difference. And obviously, we have viewers from all over the world here, which is wonderful about virtual. We have people from every continent looking today, and so the changes in the behaviors across the world are really, really interesting. The slower rebounds. But I guess the optimism part of that is that the slower rebound will catch up with the faster rebounds, and 2021 looks good. You heard it first, Stefano. You're promising us that 2021 will look good, aren't you?
Yes.
Good. Listen, thank you for joining us. Really enjoyed it, pal.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. See you next time. Listen, for the rest of you watching, thank you very much for your attention today. As always, this will be up on the on-demand platforms. So if you enjoyed watching live, make sure you flick it on to one of your colleagues or in your organizations to watch it too. Again, the network that Iñaki and his team at the Global DIY Summit have built for us on this DIY network platform is amazing. We have a huge amount of retailers, suppliers, consultants, agencies, all sorts of things. And there's loads of chat, by the way, going on the networking chat on the platform. So if you're dipping in and out of this platform just to watch the videos, that's of course fantastic. We're welcome. Lovely to have you, but do take some time to talk to your colleagues as well. And remember, the reason that this network even exists, we have an eye on the prize, which is the 9th, 10th and 11th of June in Copenhagen for the Global DIY Summit. Whether that would be a fully physical event or would it be a hybrid event with a bit of virtual and a bit of physical, we don't know yet, of course. We're all hoping for a physical one. So keep in touch. We have a number of events keep coming. So let me have a look at the next 2 coming up for you. So we mentioned those CEO interviews. And in fact, Stefano mentioned the Bunnings Group during his own presentation there. So Michael Schneider, CEO of the Bunnings Group based in Australia and New Zealand, will be joining John Herbert live on the 16th of December for one of those CEO interviews. So do tune into that. I really enjoy those with John. They're great sessions. The next webinar and Road to Recovery webinar we will be on the 22nd of January after Christmas. I'll be joined by Pascal Coppens. Pascal is a fantastic speaker. I've shared a stage many times over the world with him. He calls himself a China evangelist, which is a wonderful title to which, let's face it, he's made up himself. Basically, his speech is going to be about the two faces of innovation. He spent the last 20 years of his career, particularly looking at Asia and China, spending a lot of time there looking at innovation in that market, and then also in Silicon Valley. So he has those both, I suppose, those both sides of the coin in terms of what's happening in the US and what's happening in China and how they feed into each other. So really a fascinating man. So do join us on the 22nd of January for that Road to Recovery webinar, also on the DIY Network series here with Pascal. He's one of the Next Work speakers. If you enjoyed Rick Vera last month, he's also one of Rick's colleagues. So really great insight into innovation. So I hope you've enjoyed today. Enjoy Christmas. Have a great Christmas with family and friends. And I'm off now to untangle my Christmas tree lights and put them up. Until next time, I'm Ken Hughes. See you then.